Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order. We are continuing our meeting from Tuesday, June 16th. Today is Tuesday, the 17th. We are continuing that meeting. Present in the boardroom, we have members Wilson, Lessons, Jacobs, Higgins, Donley, and Bellamy. Joining us virtually is member Holloman. We also have the superintendent and several staff members who are continuing the meeting as well. So we will, let's stand, and would you stand please and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Last evening, I think we got to we were on item number, we were on our action item and item number, oh, hold on, I got the wrong agenda. This is the right one. We were on item number 4 under F4. Yes. What I would like to do prior to continuing our action items, last night there were several citizens that did not get an opportunity to testify. They had signed up, they'd followed all of the procedures, and we ran out of time. So I would like to alter our agenda slightly so that we can hear from those citizens before we resume our work. Is there any opposition to hearing from the citizens? There are 10 of them that were not able to testify last evening. We have contacted them and they are hopefully they will join us. Is there any I don't think I need to make that a motion if we all agree to it, or how would the board like to continue? Okay. I thought so too, but I just thought I'd ask. Thank you. Okay. So let's see who on our, I think I'll go by who's, let's see who's present in the boardroom. I'll just call the names out if they're here. Katie, did you give them a time? We said 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, okay. So we do have Sarah Osborne on the line. Sarah, can you hear me? Yes, you have 3 minutes, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Osborne. I'm an ASD educator, a parent of 2, and I'm calling in today from Denina Land. And calling in to urge this administration to envision what schooling will look like in Anchorage over the next 5 to 10 years. If we want robust learning communities where students are valued, challenged, and encouraged, we really need to support fair contracts for AEA and Totem. The district's offers thus far have been offensive to educators and also harmful to student outcomes. This has been an incredibly difficult school year for staff and students, yet teachers continue showing up every day with no contract, showing up despite the serious health risks of COVID, and showing up for our students and supporting them through their own traumatic experience of the pandemic. As Dr. Bishop has noted, extreme behaviors and violent incidents have dramatically increased across the district. A testifier last night expressed this as well, and it was evidenced by what occurred at West High 2 days ago. These behaviors are only intensifying as the school year continues, as many students' behavior, SEL, and academic needs are going unfulfilled due to the lack of staffing in schools. And yet, teachers continue to show up and do the best we can with bare-bones staffs and no subs. This is not sustainable. I am really terrified that this violence will continue to escalate as we move into this very dark and unpredictable winter. As you know, many of our best educators plan to retire, quit, or leave the profession. Some will wait until the end of the year, but others will not. And the district must act immediately to change the trajectory of where our schools are headed. The district must solve its own staffing crisis by offering AEA and Totem fair contracts, offer living wages that keep up with inflation, let us keep our healthcare and relationships with our chosen doctors, fix Tier 3 retirement to make it working, or to make working for ASD a feasible long-term career. Don't take away the planning, grading, and collaborative time that is essential to student growth and success. Please act now to protect schools now and in the future. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. Let's see. Next, we'll have telephonically Rosalind Grady Weish. Rosalind, hit *6 to unmute.
Hello?
Yes,
I
can hear you. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was on my way. I was just got out of training. Okay, I'm ready. My timer's on, I can't see.
You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Rosalind. I am a paraeducator. I am also the co-founder of the Alaska Coalition of BIPOC Educators. That is Black Indigenous People of Color. I'm a mother of 5, and they are all being educated through ASD from preschool to high school. Once again, I am a paraeducator. I started out as a cafeteria manager, and now I'm an inspiring certified educator currently going to school, paying out of pocket. I am a product of ASD. What keeps me going is that I care about the kids, but I'm also discouraged because of the fact that both unions are currently going into arbitration. I am guessing you all, or some of you, have never been in our shoes, the paraeducator who gets beat up, the educator who educates over 30 students in their classroom, no matter if they're behavioral, ELO, or SPED, and the BCO who almost works 365 days throughout the year, the bus driver who drives up and down snowy mountains, making sure children get to school safe, the front office who willingly takes it from all ends of the spectrum, or even the principals who eventually maintain and keep the whole ship together. Now, educators of color leave schools because of microaggressions from their coworkers, experiences of racism, less salaries, the lack of support provided by school leadership, the lack of resources, and the desire to pursue another career because of the mess they go through, or improve their opportunities and education so they can try to make a difference where it matters the most. I really think we need to figure out where the leaks are in the pipes on teacher retention in our district. I have my experiences as a paraeducator not feeling valued, being beat up by a student, not mentally supported, and expected to come back to work the next day. I had an employee who cried every day because of how their teacher treated them on a daily basis. I have worked with awesome teachers who left due to lack of support. I also worked with an awesome teacher who left the district because of her, instead of her being looked at as a highly educated special education teacher, she was looked at as an aggressive and angry Black woman. She didn't receive any support as far as she was concerned, and ultimately saved her sanity. Angela Campbell, you are dearly missed. Our education system deserves a racially and ethically diverse teaching force because it will prepare our children to be global citizens. And 2, teachers of color are positioned to serve as role models and cultural factors for children of color who account for more than 60% in our district. And when you do not put some respect on our names, why would we want to be here? It's almost like an abusive relationship. Get beat up, do it all over again the next day with a smile on your face. We as the district should be paying attention to the recruiting of educators of color, but also the retention. We can hire educators all day, but if they do not feel safe and supported, they are not going to stay. Being valued feels like something. I now am wanting to be a certified educator because I have been valued for the last 2 years. Now let me put on the record, I'm not saying that is not my belief, that children of color cannot be educated by just teachers of color. But I'm just...
Thank you, Roslyn. Your time is up. Okay, next we have Niall Sherwood Williams. Mr. Williams?
Can the board hear me?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. For the record, Niall Sherwood Williams, resident of Anchorage, Alaska. I'm an American citizen. I'm a child of the living God. The crime has already been committed, once again, by members of this body for unlawfully not allowing me to report to the meeting in person and to be able to redress my government for grievances and freely speak. All because a sign was held out front of Anchorage School District, which read, for the record, implied consent is not consent. ASD gas chambers. Then I had another sign where I made a mock-up of a headstone that you'd see in a gravesite. And it said RIP _ John Doe, Anchorage Youth. Death by Pfizer shot. Repeat, death by Pfizer shot. So as we all know, there is actually no John Doe as of yet, Anchorage Youth. But I am warning parents against the bioweapon attack being launched by Pfizer. The district put it on hold this week. In Jesus' name, glory to God. They decided to stop the child slaughter and the child sacrifice in the name of these bioweapons. Put your faith in the blood of Jesus Christ. He's the only way to the Father, the only way to heaven. And Anchorage School District, Superintendent, members of the executive team, cease and desist from these unlawful assaults with bioweapons, Pfizer shots. Beacon Health Services, cease and desist in Jesus' name. And about that 6-year-old little girl, on November 5th, 2021, it was a Friday, at Anchorage Education Center, at your bioweapon terrorism with willful intent to cause genocide of the Anchorage youth. And I repeat, genocide of the Anchorage youth. Beacon Health Services held the child down, 6 years old, in the atrium of the Anchorage Education Center while she said, and I quote, "No, no, I don't want to do it. No, no, I don't want to." So when I hear a girl that says no, no means no. We as Alaskan citizens have the right to refuse medical care. That includes people of all age groups. All people are human beings and are entitled to the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as well as Amendment 9 et al. So all rights that are not named are also held by each human being. You don't have the right to violate that. You're not providing proper consent. It's not in a one-on-one clinical setting with patient, parent, and provider. It's actually in a public.
Next, we have Valerie Bellerud. Okay, we'll have to come back to her. Let's try Dawn Bockelman. Madison John. I don't. Nope. Okay. What about Catherine Walker? Okay, Kayla submitted hers in writing. Thank you. What about David McCarthy? Okay. And Arthur Jensen. Okay. So that includes everyone that had signed up last night that we notified that could come back today. All right. So that brings us back to our agenda. And we left off at item F3, Memorandum 041, I believe there was an amendment when we, okay. She'll need just a moment to pull that up.
We have passed 2 amendments. President Bowman, do you recall who was the second one? I think it was Dora. Seconded that last one. Okay. We left with this as an amendment on the floor.
Yes, we did leave with this amendment, and after consideration, I'd like to just withdraw or the amendment. It's my amendment, and I'd like to withdraw it at this time. Seeing no opposition to that. Okay, so what is the will of the body?
May I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
So you've withdrawn this amendment, and so we should no longer expect the staff to present a
Exactly.
proposal. Okay, thank you.
And that is, and yes, and so I did, yes, that's what I'm going to do right now. It occurs to me that there might be room for a little bit more than $100 million, although for my own personal comfort, I'd like to keep it at 102 mil. But I want to have more discussion about the safety issues before, and maybe that's what I should have done, is maybe ask more questions about the safety issue. Yes, you can hand those out. Am I confusing myself now or anybody else? Let's we'll hand out the handout here so we can kind of get a.
So without it being voted on, we did it. Without it being voted on, we did it. We are, after the last vote, we were at option 2 plus the Lake Otis work here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Just
Yes. And I thank you, Mr. Roth, for this, because I'm trying to figure out, I don't want to limit us to 102 if we can handle more. But I also want to make sure that we're not splitting. I didn't quite understand the end of that last discussion we had. I think Member Lessons said something about a 16 million plus a 9 million. And it seems to me that would be splitting. So I didn't understand that whole discussion. So if you could walk us through the list that we have here, that would be great.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Through the president. So just to recap very briefly, when we left last night, the board had approved for amendment option 2, which was inclusive of Inlet View, but also removed the Lake Otis and the Chugiak High School roof projects. The board then, Member Lessons then did recommend an amendment to add back Lake Otis, which the board subsequently approved. So what you see here is just a very quick summary based on guidance that we received at the end of the meeting last night, taking those two events in context, that we were asked to come back with a list of proposed decrements that would get down to an amount below 102 million. But also Member Hallman had mentioned, a willingness to look at potentially going above that amount. So the list that you see there is in order what the administration would recommend if the board were to decide to reduce down from what is now $111 $1,105,000 to an amount to about $102,000. We as an administration do strongly recommend that we not decrement the security vestibule projects, that we would continue to retain those on the bond. So what you see is the decrements would be a roof replacement, Spring Hill Elementary School, and then we had two projects for the maintenance building and for Ursa Minor for restoration, roof restoration projects, that we would move those and that we would decrement planning and design by some amount to get us down below 102 million. So that's a very quick synopsis.
Okay. Member Donnelly?
Yeah, Madam President, I'd move the restoration of the Chugiak roof project to the bond package.
The restoration of, okay, so I need to probably pull up my documents. And how much is that? Because I don't have my.
Mr. Roth ought to have that number.
Product there, Tom.
How much is that?
Madam President.
Where would we be moving it to? On this list, we would be moving it into the 111 million?
Yeah, the deferred requirements projects. It was on the original proposal before.
It was just above 16.8 million in 2022 for the Chugiak High School roof restoration project.
$16 million, is that the one?
16.8.
So then what you're suggesting is that, I know, yes, that's true.
I'll second for discussion.
Madam President, I think if, speaking to the main motion of the amendment, I think if the people of Chugiak knew what happened last night, that their roof was taken out, I think they would be unhappy. They'd be here just like the other people were here because the other people had notice of what was going on. Chugiak people didn't.
Is there, okay, there was a second. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Could our staff speak to the scope of the work that's involved with the roof replacement project and the urgency of including on this year versus the impact of waiting for a future bond cycle? Thank you. Do you want to talk to that, Tom?
Yeah. Through the President. Yes, so Chugiak roof already has gone through some renovation. We actually did a restoration on a portion of it over the gym. It is a very large roof. It includes the older Irma type roofs. We've had some issues with it, but it's being maintained. If the question is, could it last another bond cycle, another 2 years? Yes, of course.
Other comments?
May I ask a question about an unrelated school?
No.
No,
Could you
okay.
just, we're speaking to the motion.
Nobody else has a question.
Well, we don't know that yet
No.
because I haven't gone around the room.
Okay.
Mr. Holloman, do you have a question?
What is the total for Chugiak and what is the total that we've approved so far?
So far, we have approved 111 million, just over $111 million. The amendment before us would add another 17 million, 16.8 million.
Thank you.
Member Higgins.
So I won't say anything. Maybe I will. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I appreciate the list that we've got in front of us in regards to where the reductions can be, because I'm looking at it from the standpoint of what they have to maintain, what the risk factors are, and taking that into assessment. I don't believe that going above 102 million is going to jeopardize. I think it could, the bond itself. I just don't want to go higher than that. And I like that. And I like the responsiveness here. I'd like to, Chugach, if it can wait a couple of years, we're pushing things up as opposed to moving them back, eliminating them. We're not doing that. And, so I'm gonna, I support what they've done and the work that they've done in regards to coming up with this list. So I'm not going to support trying to modify that or increase it above the 102 because I think we jeopardize getting the bond approved otherwise.
Member Wilson, anything right now? Okay. Now, Member Lessons, did you have a comment on the motion, or you? On the motion?
Not on Chugach High School at this time. Well, I'll say that just for the record, it was in the first option, and then it was also in option 3, but not in option 2.
Because we substituted
Correct.
option 1.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. I've heard a lot of talk about what's the most efficient, cost-efficient step in justifying what's in here. Is delaying the Chugach roof the most cost-efficient way to proceed?
Through the president, I'm not sure, Member Donnelly, I'm understanding the question.
Well, we've had a lot of debate that moving forward with doing a total school rebuild is more cost efficient than doing major remodels. So I'm asking, is delaying the necessary needed repairs to the Chugach roof for 2 years the most cost-efficient way to proceed at this time?
Through the president, to Member Donnelly, thank you for the question. So again, I'll come back to the comment from last night that the administration made a recommendation to the board for a bond proposition that included Chugach High School as one of the projects on that bond. Mm-hmm. And I stand by that. To Mr. Fenisev's comment, that roofs in the district that, this old Irma style roof as an example at Chugach, they are problematic, and there is risk that the longer that the roof remains as is, that if there were a significant failure, that there is, most likely going to be a more expensive repair. But it's, that's presumptive. I don't know that would happen within a 2 to 4 year period, but it's a risk the longer you keep it. Coming back to your question, is it the most efficient? It will be more expensive in 2024. So from a purely economic cost perspective, the short answer is no.
Okay. Any more questions, discussion on the amendment? Call the vote. And I guess I need to restate the amendment. Mm-hmm. The amendment number 3 would add restoring the Chugach roof replacement project for a total of $16.8 million to $111 million existing projects. I can add that later. I know we have to do it. We have to do a
Member Wilson.
Vote.
No. Member Lessons.
No.
Member Jacobs.
No.
Member Holloman.
No.
Member Higgins.
You should say mine first.
Yeah.
Vote for somebody
Point of
else.
order, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Madam Secretary, Member Higgins voted for me.
Oh.
So we need to correct the record.
Oh, I wasn't.
Vote early, vote often,
Okay,
remember?
Sorry. Okay.
Everybody vote for yourself.
Member Higgins, you had voted no.
And member.
Or wait, and Carl, you voted no.
No, ma'am,
No, he
I
hasn't
haven't
voted
voted
yet.
yet.
You haven't
and
voted yet.
I vote yes.
Sorry. I guess I should look up when I ask. Member Donnelly.
Yes.
President Donnelly.
No. And that amendment fails 5-2. Are there any other amendments?
I guess where we're at, we've got the list that has been proposed by the administration, so I would propose that we adopt the reductions proposed by the administration, and that is Spring Hill Elementary roof replacement of 5.17 million, Ursa Minor Elementary restoration 1.804 million, maintenance roof restoration 1.556 million, and planning and design 712,000. That will reduce the total project to 101,863.
Is that the correct interpretation of our sheet? Everybody understands? Okay, so because I won't repeat it like you did. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we will do. Katie has these.
I had them all done out individually, so hold on for just a moment. Take me a moment. And is there a second?
We need a second. I'll second.
Take me a moment to get everything up with you.
That's
Want to go
okay.
on with discussion?
So there is a second. What, you'd speak to your motion, please?
Thank you. A couple of things. One is, and Mr. Donnelly, I think you'll agree on this, that all the safety issues are here. And I know you spoke to that last night. I appreciate that. Administration is advocating not to cut that. I totally support that. With the safety is still number one, and those are critical issues, and I'm glad to see that. All of the reductions that we make are going to be a judgment issue, because they all are problems and issues, and they could be problems between now and the next couple of years. Even the ones that in 2026 are still got issues there that could pop up earlier and move them up to a higher level of need between now and then as well. There are all kind of problems associated with our deferred maintenance list. So what I'm looking for, and what I think we've received, is the administration's best evaluation in regards to if we're going to eliminate items this year and put it off for 2 years. These are the safest of the list, and the ones that would cause the least problems. All of them will cause some problems or may cause contributing issues as well. But given the fact that we're switching things out really from 2000 and up to this year, 2022, and as opposed to 2024, this makes sense to me, the list that they provided. It seems to be logical that some of these areas would be the ones that would pop up. And we got to make hard choices. And they've got to maintain the facilities. I think we need to give them the flexibility as to which ones they think they can maintain the best and which ones they can delay. It's a judgment call, and they've got the additional information that we, the board, do not have. So I appreciate the list they came out with, and I think that below 102 million is important, because I do think it's difficult sometimes with these bonds, with some of the items we've got and other issues that are out there. If we made it larger this year, it could be real tough. And so that's the reason why I chose to adopt recommend the list that they provided to us. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Kelly.
I want to go on the record and say that there's a lot that I support here, and I appreciate the focus on the safety and security. I did pull up the past 6 years of CIPs just to see what's been around and what's newer. And of course, there are things that become pressing. Spring Hill has been on a CIP at least since the 2019-2024 CIP. So that's been around for a while. So it's getting its can kicked down the road a little bit more. The one thing that I think I would just appreciate is a better understanding of why this year, for the first time, the security vestibule sort of target for the 22 bond increased from $9 million to $16 million. And the best detail I could find was in this the document that we received about 6 weeks ago. It had a nice breakdown of all of the projects, and I appreciated that level of detail. And that's the first time anywhere that I see replace analog surveillance systems and the attached to the number 16 million versus security vestibules around $9 million. So I guess, could you guys just speak a little bit more to the maybe the urgency of expanding from $9 million to $16 million this year?
Through the president. Again, just offering a thought here that, you know, it's not that there is a change in urgency. I would argue that you know, we as an administration, I think the board members as well, historically have recognized, and some of this was perhaps exacerbated after Parkland, recognizing that there is a threat. I mean, we have the same social issues in Anchorage as they have in Parkland, Florida, and realizing that many of our schools were built to a standard that, you know, back in the 60s, 70s, that problems that exist now did not exist then. So it's been a balance of trying to figure out, you know, what percentage of your bond dollar goes towards roofs, what goes towards security, what goes towards all the different requirements. So as this has been addressed for several years, I think that, you know, maybe if not an increased sense of urgency, but just a recognition that, you know, we're kind of taking unnecessary risk by not addressing something now that we can address.
Madam President, may I also add, we were charged by the board at that time, and we created a safety panel that was made up of parents and students and administrators, and they came up with recommendations. And those were some of the recommendations. And what you heard last time, they studied the problems. It was an extensive review, and they studied the problems, and that's where Member Donnelly mentioned, and exactly some of the issues that came out about the differences between secondary schools. The threat is on the inside, elementary on the out. So a lot of those things came up at the same time. I would say that in addition to that, just what was already stated in regard to us putting together the original bond was really the support and understanding major maintenance, safety issues, all those top priorities that had come out from what Tom Roth mentioned in the Hayes survey. And so, you know, it isn't one turning point, tipping point. As we said, year to year, that the CIP continues to change based on the board's direction at the time. That is a dynamic document, and we'll see it change quite a bit. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
So I thank Dr. Bishop. So I guess, I mean, I really don't have anything else to add other than, again, a recognition that it is a need to address what is a limitation in our older buildings that were not designed or built for the environment we find ourselves in today.
Okay. Did I see no, Member Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. It's been 2 or 3 years, but I remember a discussion where we talked about that in this marketplace, there's only so many folks that have this skill set to do these kinds of projects, and that we were spreading it out over a series of years because we wanted to not superheat that particular skill set in a given bond period. And it made sense to adjust this to the marketplace too, or else I think we would have done it faster. That's just my memory of one of the factors we were looking at also.
Thank you. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually just wanted to point out that the discussion regarding safety, which I appreciate and I support, the projects being included in our bond proposal actually aren't necessarily germane to the amendment number 4 raised by Member Higgins. And so we're really deciding about reducing the items listed. And so I just wanted to differentiate.
Thank you. So the amendment before us is to remove Spring Hill roof replacement, Ursa Minor elementary restoration project for a reduction of 1.8 mil. The maintenance roof restoration for a reduction of 1.56 mil. And the planning design amount for a reduction of 712,000 for a total bond amount of 101,863.
Madam President, can I just make one clarification? This is a typo omission on my part. So it was the Ursa Minor elementary roof restoration.
Restoration. We left the word roof out.
I omitted that word unintentionally.
Yes. You get it, Katie? Roof. Any questions before we vote? Yes. Member Wilson?
I do have a question regarding replacement versus restoration. The two restoration projects, is there a concern, at this time it's a restoration project, is there a concern by pushing it to a future bond that it will become a roof replacement, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but is quite a bit more expensive than the restoration?
Through the president to Member Wilson, it is a risk.
No other questions? Member Donnelly, not Donnelly, sorry. Holloman, are you good?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, let's vote. Yes.
I just want to say I have a continuing concern with us spending $30 million for a new school when we could be within a reasonable bond package total amount accomplishing all these overdue roof replacement projects. I'm just really disappointed we're dropping these in preference of tearing down a school and rebuilding a new one.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. Whenever you're ready. Katie.
Vice President Holloman.
Yes.
Member Jacobs.
Yes.
Member Lessons.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Member Higgins.
Yes.
Member Donnelly.
No.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that passes 6 yeas, 1 nay. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other. Yes, Dora.
I'm a little concerned about the removing both of the restorations with the obvious concern that future bonds could cost us more to replace those roofs.
So we just voted to remove those for are you offering a motion?
I would like to offer a motion to add those two Ursa Minor Elementary roof restoration and maintenance roof restoration back onto the bond.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. You can speak to your motion.
My concern is just that the potential for increasing our costs, the Spring Hill Elementary roof restoration, and I'll just make that comparison. I don't know that it's dollar for dollar, and I'll let you folks speak to that. But the roof replacement is $5,170,000 for the Spring Hill Elementary roof replacement versus the restoration, which we can restore at this time for $1,804 or $1,804,000. My concern is the cost of the district will be possibly considerably increased if we push these two projects to a future bond.
Point of clarification. Yeah. You are speaking of the Ursa Minor roof project and the maintenance roof project, or?
Correct.
The spring, okay. Thank you.
So you want to put those back into, so that would add that amount of money to the
$1,804,000 in addition to the $1,556,000 for the maintenance roof restoration. So the two roof restoration projects is what I am requesting that we add back in.
And what would that amount be? Any other comments, questions on the motion? Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Do staff have any perspective on what a replacement would cost for the maintenance roof and the Ursa Minor? I mean, is it in the range of, can we make that apples to apples comparison for Spring Hill, or is that not accurate?
It's comparable. Yeah, so I think generally as a planning factor, the cost to restore a roof is about 25% of the cost to replace.
Madam President, could I just make a brief comment then?
Yes.
Yep. So I almost chose to make a motion to divide the question, but out of respect for Katie, I chose not to, and I probably would have made this motion had Dora not, Member Wilson not. So I think I support it. I think making reasonable financial decisions now that could, and may save funds in future years, I think is something that the board should stand for and get behind. Thank you.
Do we have a final amount? I mean, I guess I could.
Addition?
For the addition.
$3,360,000.
3 million. Okay. Carl.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, so Amendment 5. To add back in Ursa Minor Elementary Roof Restoration Project. Okay. And the Maintenance Roof Restoration Project for an amount of, what is that total amount again? 3,600,000? 3.6 mil. Which would then bring our bond package to
105,000.
almost about 105 million. Is that right? Close to it?
3,614, yeah, 15 something. Yeah. 105, 463.
Other questions, comments?
I'd like to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in support of the amendment. We're all cognizant of the fact that if we added in everything that we thought needed to be done, it would be a number that would not be supported by the public. But we're still in that situation where we have more needs coming on each year than we are addressing. And I think we have to move in the direction of fully taking care of the district, at least pacing, and hopefully getting a little bit better than that, so that we skinny it down and take care of things in a more timely manner. Mm-hmm. So I think as we go through the spring, bigger forces are going to prevail. I don't think this is an amount that changes the likelihood of the bond passing by very much. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lower number is better, but in explaining this to the public, roofs have always seemed to makes sense. There are always a handful of people that don't understand why we ever have to work on them or replace them. But most people do get that they have a lifespan and they are expensive to replace. And when we talk about the number that we have in the district, they kind of get the math on the fact that we've got to do a certain number of them every year or we fall hideously behind. And we can only do so many every year. So I do support putting this in and continuing the work on it. And I'll vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote? I'm sorry. We're ready to vote. Katie. On Dora's amendment.
Did you want to restate it?
I'll restate the amendment to add Ursa to add Ursa Minor Elementary School roof restoration project to the 2022 bond proposal for 1.8 mil and the maintenance roof restoration project to the 2022 bond proposal for just over 1.5 mil for a total addition of 3.3 mil, just over 3.3 mil. All right, let's vote.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Higgins, Member Donnelly,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that passes unanimously. So our bond now stands at 105,223, 105 million, just over 105 million.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does the administration right now, do you have a sense of how many facilities are supported by the present series of amendments that we have here? Between, there's a lot, some big projects and then smaller ones.
I think we could probably look at the options.
Yeah, I'd probably have to.
I mean, it might take a little bit.
I would have to take account.
Yeah.
I would opine though within the municipality proper. I think it is a fairly widespread distribution of projects. I would say it's lacking in the Eagle River Chugiak area. It's just an observation now that that high school has been postponed to 2024.
May I make a motion?
Sure.
I move to add Chugiak Elementary to the bond.
And what is that amount?
It is $5.9 million.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. I will second the motion.
Okay, you may speak to your motion.
I appreciate the reflection from Mr. Roth about the lack of school property in the Eagle River Chugiak area. And I think one of the things that I value about the overall package is that it encompasses so many schools, so many subsets of our community. It gets people to be excited about improvement in their neck of the woods. And although I appreciated Member Donnelly's Chugiak High School motion a little while ago, I feel like this it gets us part of the way there at a slightly lower cost. So I see value in, if we've already passed that $102 million threshold, I see value in incorporating the Chugiak community through the elementary school project.
Other comments? Member Holloman, you okay?
Yes, thank you.
Motion is to add, what are we adding? Chugiak Elementary for a cost of 5.9 million. I don't know if that's the exact amount.
So, Madam President, if I might just, Mr. Fennessip did account, so this current proposition will benefit 28 school facilities and a maintenance facility in the district.
Does that include TUGAC if it passes?
If
Okay.
28 if the board were to add TUGAC Elementary.
Okay. And the cost, can I get a overall, what is that, 110 mil?
I have 111.
Oh, 11, okay, thank you. Okay. Member Higgins.
Yeah, I looked at these before, and even when we first started it, and I thought to myself, we've got such a tremendous backlog of roofs and new ways of doing it. You go out there with a separate bond just on roofs and then maintain everything and just go bananas and let's catch up. But there's a limitation here of what we're risking as far as approval based upon the size and the amount where we're at. And if we're going to add something back in, I would want to consider what our staff is telling us is the highest priority. And this they gave us the list of the ones that we can cut, and we can add back all kind of ones. I am concerned that the size of the bond may risk getting anything through. And I think when we get up to the 110 category and above, that's the reason why we pulled back on that. I think we really run a risk of getting it approved. We're close right now to what we're paying off. People can understand the issues are there. We've got some high priorities. We've got a lot of deferred maintenance. We've got some school issues with serious problems, and we can sell that. But I'm just concerned that right now it would be a problem. I don't know if we're going to get any of the infrastructure funds coming into the state and where that will go. That supposedly is going to go to all kind of public buildings and everything. So we may get some funds coming in anyway. But even if we don't, I just don't want to see us go for everything and lose what we could have gotten. And I'm just concerned about that, and that's the reason why I'm going to pull back from supporting this one. But I appreciate the goal and I see the benefits, but we got a lot of schools that will lose if we don't get the bond through.
Other comments, questions?
Yes. I have two comments. Number one, just to remind the board that the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, if I recall my reading correctly, recommended that we bond at $80 million a year. That would meet our needs. So less than 80 million doesn't meet our ongoing needs. I don't think the community would buy that, but just putting that out there for the record. And then again, looking at, this is a printout from the October meeting again, previous bonds that have passed have been well above what this would be at 55.5 million per year. We've passed bonds that were 59 million, 57, 54.8, 59.2, 58.4, 59.1. So it's within the realm of the possible.
Let's, no other comments. We'll vote.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Jacobs.
Yes.
Member Lessons.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Member Higgins.
Why not? Yes.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
President Bellamy.
No.
Unanimous.
And that passes 6-1. So our bond package is now up to $111, approximately. Let's say that.
No, well, depends if this is our final.
Yeah, we don't know yet. 111,123,000. $1,000. Okay, see no other comments, no other hands. We have a bond package? We gotta go back to the main one.
I
Yeah.
had if we're back to the main motion, I did have a question about
Okay.
the package in total.
Okay.
So,
Hold on one minute.
oh, sure, yeah.
Are you ready for it?
This would be the main motion.
What is the main motion?
I would feel a little bit more comfortable if someone would also check the math that I've done to make sure.
To check the math.
If this is the main motion as amended.
You want to take an ad?
Let's take a little at ease to make sure, Katie, that our math is right.
Did that have a decimal place in it?
Huh?
Sorry.
I got my calculator here.
We were at 111.
My concern is just that we've had a facility in the past. The reason why we were 57, 50, they did not want us going above this being paid off. We ended up paying off more than we were today.
I think we crunched that number for the 96 million proposal. Do you have that?
But we started. Where did we start? We started here.
Yeah, but it's really big. 101.
Okay.
We're going
101.
We're seeing everything. Well, principle, it raises control flies more and it's going to be focused
3630.
in the year.
Oh, that's not right.
Right, and that's, yeah, and that's
I mean, I don't want to ask you an unfair question, but I think it's a legitimate question.
Speaking of Mike,
We'd like to welcome everybody back. So we are at the main motion with a final bond, well, if this is the final bond amount of $111,233,393 million. Mr. Roth, could you read the projects that would be in that amount, please?
Yes, Madam President, through the President to the board. So to recap what the board is going to vote on for a bond proposition. So the first project is Inlet View Elementary School replacement at an amount of $30,967,000. The next, the East High School Academic Area Safety Improvements, $6,073,000. I'm going to read through a number of roof projects. The Chinook Elementary School roof replacement, $5,489,000. Campbell Elementary School roof replacement, $5,950,000. College Gate Elementary School roof replacement, $6,663,000. Kincaid Elementary School site improvements, $5,725,000. Birchwood Elementary boiler replacement, $3,832,000. 1990 prototypical roof improvements, $5,379,000. Prioritized security vestibule and security improvements, $16,030,000. Maintenance building roof restoration, $1,556,000. Ursa Minor Elementary School roof restoration, $1,804,000. The Lake Otis Elementary School building improvements, $12,942,000. The Chugiak Elementary School roof replacement, $5,900,000. And then for planning and design, Tom, you can confirm, but the amount currently listed of $2,572,000, that would be decremented by amount of $712,000, equating to an amount of $1,800,060.
Thank you.
The only difference in that is with the maintenance building.
Can you use your mic, sir?
So-
He's talking to Tom.
So there is, and we probably will need to adjust. So by moving the Chugiak Elementary School roof replacement from 2024 to 2022, that would modify the planning and design money. We probably need to recalculate that.
Yes, so the planning and design money is calculated based on the next year's cycle of bonds. So when you reduce that from the next year's cycle of bonds, you reduce the planning and design money needed. And I'd have to go through the calculation on that, but it'd be less money for planning and design.
Okay.
So can we derive a number?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.25%.
Okay.
Madam President, if we might maybe take a pause and place for a couple minutes while we calculate these figures.
Absolutely. Let's take a comfort break for about 5 minutes.
No, it's not.
No, this is the main motion, right? All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, the amended, the corrected amount is.
All right. So we have we are now at the main motion. We now have a correct amount. And so the main motion, as amended, to approve Proposition 1, district-wide roof replacement and improvements, inlet view school replacement, security improvements, deferred required and building life extension and safety improvements, and planning and design projects in the amount of $111,090,000. I meant $1 million, as outlined in this memorandum. And so, Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. So I want to take us back to where we began this journey. I want to thank the board members and engaging in ongoing and thoughtful dialogue, and the staff for helping facilitate it. Going back to Inlet View, where some of the modifications to our bond proposal started, and I still am very interested and invested in making sure that the best possible outcome occurs with that design process. But I am adamant that I don't see a place for the board in duplicating or being involved in the building design committee work. And so to that end, I would ask that you, Madam President, hopefully facilitate a presentation by the Building Design Committee at a meeting of ours in January, of giving us an update as to how things are going with the new members and the process. Because again, our inclusion of that project in the bond proposal and their process as a design committee are entirely separate, and we aren't advocating for anything besides its inclusion here with this vote. The other thing I would ask is if we could have the building design committee meetings calendared on our calendar, so we can board members can attend if we so choose, just to understand what the process is, how it's going. I think would be great without any concern for Open Meetings Act issues. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see it, Mr. Roth. Do you see any? I think those are reasonable requests that we could have a work session around the continuing work. Do you have any thoughts on that? And you too, Dr. Bishop.
Through the president to the board and to Member Jacobs' comments. Absolutely. I think the intent is that we would be as transparent in the whole building design process. I recognize the communication with the ombudsman, I thought his analysis and recommendations were frankly spot on. That I would just comment because I think there may be some community perception that by not complying specifically with the Open Meeting Act guidance, that was intentional. I can assure you it absolutely was not. I think it was more out of ignorance, but we absolutely want to correct that. That guidance I've given to Mr. Fenisef is that moving forward, every meeting will be noticed to the public so that interested parties can certainly attend and observe those meetings for this design.
Thank you.
Madam President, could I just follow up briefly?
Yes, sir.
I just want to be clear. I appreciate Mr. Roth. Thank you for the follow-up. My sole intention with the request is to make sure, not that everyone in the BDC agrees or the community is in agreement, because I don't think that is a realistic outcome, but truly just to make sure everyone feels heard at the end of the process. And so that's definitely my intention. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to those discussions.
Thank you. And I have a question. We have tell me how, once we have our package, our bond and CIP package, tell me how does that, who writes the language that accompanies the bond? We have a proposal from a group of community members, and I will forward it to you it's right now in where did I send it? Finance. just so we could have a placeholder for it, because I really don't know what to quite do with bond language, because I know we suggest language, and that language goes to the muni and it goes someplace else. So how does that work?
Through the president to the board. So if I understand correctly, there are actually a couple of different communications that will go forward. The first one I'll address is that there will be language written, and generally this will come from capital planning construction, that is the language that will actually go on the election ballot, that is specific to what the administration or what the school district is asking from the public. There is a second, actually there are three. So the next is a document that goes forward to bond council. And that's, again, the communication that articulates what the board has acted on or a bond proposition. And I think Jim is probably better versed on explaining, what happens when it goes into that process. But the language we get back from bond council, based on the guidance that we send to them, informs how, if the assembly approves and it gets on the ballot and the public approves it, how the district can spend the bond authority. And then lastly, not necessarily sequentially, but we send a communication to the city clerk, and that informs the assembly prior to their taking action on the request.
Okay.
Did I cover that? Is there anything else I'm missing there, Tom?
So if there was input into the drafting of language on either one of those, where would that go for consideration?
I guess, Madam President, I'm not fully understanding, because usually the language is very specific to the projects. I mean, what the projects are, and then the dollar amount that is estimated. If we're talking about details of what each project involves, that language is not included in any of those communications.
Okay. Now this is, I think what I want to do is not hold us up here, but I'll come in and have a chat with you. Right now it's sitting, I sent it to finance just because I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't want to lose it. So perhaps we can look at it at either the next finance meeting.
I have it on the 15th.
On the 15th,
December.
great. We got it already covered, so you can advise us at that time. But I want to talk to you prior to that time.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Okay, our main motion.
Wait, can I
Sorry.
just, had a few questions real quick, Ms. Ross. One, what is roughly the property value? I mean, we always talk about how much and you have to put back into maintenance, and given the value of the property. What's the estimate today of what our property value is? Do you have any idea?
The $2 billion. $2 billion through the president to Member Higgins. $2 billion is the assessed property.
And then the maintenance required to maintain things. We have obviously $800 million deferred maintenance. It's massive, but even without that, we would normally be expected to spend approximately how much per year just to maintain that?
So
there's a percentage formula as a general rule, right? With most businesses.
So the guidance that is provided by the Council of the Great City Schools is for a district of our size, about anywhere between 40 and 80 million annually for deferred major maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make that point, because when we're looking at the size of the bond, we're looking at what we're doing every year. And we've got such a large deficit. I just think that's important when we are explaining it to the public and to what's going on, that we are spending money on maintenance every year, a substantial amount. But the legislature in the 1990s decided not to fund capital type improvements. They said they would fund it through bonds, and they expected us to do that. So it really wasn't added into the formula for for operations. And so we're following that. And when you look at the size of the properties that we have and the amount that businesses would be putting into it every year just to maintain it, we're in that category or low compared to what capital investment you have to keep putting back in to maintain that that size of operation. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, Member Donnelly, before we vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I just say that I support the vast majority of the projects on this bond package. I remain concerned about the Inlet View as a total tear down, rebuild, a brand new school. And I'd point out that the difference in the cost of doing a new school at Inlet View and doing a major remodel to fix all the problems there is the difference is about 10 million, which is just about enough to make this new total of $111 million for this bonds down below the amount of bonds we are retiring. So I hope the board at some point will reconsider. And I think that would be, I still think that's the proper way to move ahead.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. See no other hands or comments. The main motion is before you.
Member Higgins,
Yes.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Donnelly,
No.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that passes 6 yeas to 1 nay. Thank you, board. And that takes us to our next item, F4, Memorandum number 043.
Yes, Madam President, I move ASD Memorandum number 043, the 6-year capital improvement plan.
Wait a second.
Second.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved in second that we approve the 6-year plan, improvement plan. Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. Because of how the changes that have now occurred in the 6-year plan due to the bond package the board just approved, I would suggest that it's going to take some time to restructure it. And so it'd be appropriate I would move to table the 6-year proposal, the consideration of that at this time, and to our next meeting, I would suggest.
Time Pacific to 12/6 is our next meeting. Is there a second for Ms.?
I'll second that.
Okay. Got it, Katie? And I think Member Donnelly, you've already spoken to your motion, but did you want to say anything else? Any other comments or questions? So the motion before you is to table the memorandum number 043 so that the staff can have an opportunity to match it with the changes that we just made. Whenever you're ready, Katie, voice vote.
Member Donnelly,
Yes.
Member Higgins,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now moving on to item F5, memorandum number 054. A board member asked to pull this from our consent agenda. I think it was Member Lessons, or would you like to speak to? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Go on, Member Holloman.
Yes, to move ASD Memorandum number 054, acceptance of ARP Act Grant Award.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Yeah, it's been moved in second to approve and authorize the superintendent to accept an American Rescue Plan, that's ARP Act grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development in the amount of $112,451,632 million. I always get that mixed up. All right.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this item. At this time, I move to reallocate $5,387,699 of the funds currently directed toward the indirect cost and intended to recoup the costs associated with administrative services that are paid from the district's general fund for items such as purchasing, OMB, finance, payroll, and HR to a new high-value response area for FY22, attracting and retaining a classroom workforce.
Second.
I was just gonna say, did you send that to me already? Because I did not, missed it. Okay. Thank you.
So it's been moved in second. It'll be up in a minute. You may speak to your motion. She's gonna, I think you can, because I'm not.
Sure. So crucially, this reallocation would allow ASD to conduct a strategic investment in our classrooms for the remainder of FY22 and can be further refined to focus on areas of our greatest instructional priority, for instance, with respect to reading, math, science, as well as our CTE offerings. It would be wholly aligned with operational, instructional, and spending priorities identified through the ESSER 3 community input process, and would still leave $565,000 and change for administrative purposes, in addition to more than $3.1 million that are allocated from ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 for indirect cost. In Memo 54, $5.9 million of the 112.4 are currently directed toward indirect cost and intended to recoup these administrative services. It's my understanding that the rate for indirect cost is set for FY22 at 5.59%. This is the maximum allowable rate according to DEED for this year, but it can be applied to grants at less than the maximum rate. In a way, what's troubling for me, based on my understanding, is that although charging indirect costs to grants is a common practice and is intended to account for the resources that they consume, the real work that the staff have to do, I don't think that it allows the board to be as nimble, to borrow from a phrase at our finance meeting the other day, as I think we need to be at this particular moment. And I say that given the realities of our labor situation. Right now, we are in a state that faces tremendous challenges attracting and retaining teachers due to state ordained retirement structures. Our district hasn't been able to fill all of its openings this fall. And I just read that nationally, we've had 30,000 public school teachers give notice in September alone. So I think that the project of prioritizing student learning with respect to math, reading, science, and CTE must address the issue of retaining the staff we do have, as well as enable the district to attract new employees. Finally, just for comparison purposes, I want to understand what districts like ours are doing across the country. The Center for Reinventing Public Education, which is tracking 100 large and urban districts, including Council of Great City Schools members, has an alphabet soup of districts that are focusing on educator pipeline, teacher capacity, teacher salary priorities. So, literally and figuratively, Anchorage should be at the top of the list. We have, Atlanta is beating us at this game. They're focusing on small class sizes, hiring additional support staff. They're targeting students who are underserved or disproportionately impacted by COVID by hiring additional staff. Baltimore, which had 178,000 touch points to create their plans, came up with a list of priorities. Priority number 2 for Baltimore is that city schools will actively recruit, retain, and support qualified educators, administrators, and staff who are prepared to accelerate the personal growth and academic excellence of each student. Albuquerque I just started going through the list, and I will rest there. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess my question, I have a question. So do you know what we're doing as a district prior to making the recommendation? I mean,
so there is in the memorandum, there's specific high value, what is the phrase? Specific targets for the near future. Learning loss initiatives, including summer school for this upcoming summer, a new data platform, air quality improvements, duct cleaning, optimizing airflow, King Tech welding shop. There's 500,000 for the recruitment and retention of hard to fill staff. And there's some more for going to reading initiatives and charter schools. I looked at this indirect cost because I thought that the board might take particular interest in deciding that it wanted to focus on the issue of staff retention and recruitment at this moment in time for FY22.
And I guess I would just like, I think I personally need to have more information. I can't, $5 million. I mean, I know when you look at a pot of money, $112 million, it is so enticing that we can do everything. But I also know that there are things that are being done. There are also pieces that are missing for me. I don't have the information I need to support this tonight. Not saying I don't support it, but I would like to have a more systemic review of what is being done, what is being planned. And so I see Jim came up, and Dr. Bishop, which one of y'all want to speak first?
Madam President, I'll go first. And member lessons, I really appreciate your ability to research, but I in your meeting, in your finance meeting, we shared that approximately $6 to $8 million went into small class sizes this year. We lost over 1,000 students and did not reduce and kept our staffing. Member Higgins has shared and known publicly in the meetings about the fiscal cliff we are about to take, that we have not increased. We have contracts to settle. We recommended utilizing these funds for our staff specifically to carry us through and not reduce the staffing in ASD. Hence, we requested that as your budget comes through, that you see the spots for this, because we use the ESSER 2 to hold us together this year, to see the investments into these next 2 years in regard to staffing, in regard to learning loss, in regard to summer. So we provided the items that are right away, requesting the board to honor your budget process so that we can attract and retain as many staff members as we can. The indirect cost doesn't go out and buy additional people in administration. It frees up present money to reinvest back into our classrooms. And so I thought our discussions shared some of that information, but I will challenge any district in absolutely investing this ARP money into the people of the district, the children and the employees. And so I'm glad that you did your research. I'm glad you're happy about those other districts, but I'll tell you, you've got a great one right here.
Mr. Anderson.
Through the president, I think I must have been misclear somehow in the finance committee meeting. We actually have more flexibility by taking the indirect cost, applying it towards currently budgeted admin costs, freeing up general fund money that could be applied towards deficit. It could be applied towards a number of things. So you really have more flexibility to deal with. I think the board is aware, I hope, that we had about a $12 million budget deficit this year. We may or may not get $7.1 million from federal impact aid that the state is holding. Depends on their appeal. We do have personnel shortages, which are certainly creating unspent funds that can go towards that deficit. But I think we've been pretty consistent when we briefed that the very first memo was going to cover some initial, immediate, emergent needs, things like the duct cleaning and making sure we're covering down for summer school so we can start planning now, and that we would follow with the pro forma in December, where the board can see what we think our starting point is if we did everything the same way we did it this year, based off projected enrollment next year, and what the general fund shortfall would be if we did not use ESSER funds or SRSA funds. And the board will see, we're not done yet, we're still working on it, it's pretty complicated, but it will probably be north of $60 million. So when we come in and we build a budget and we talk about this during the pro forma, and you can see that there's a deficit naturally, just like we use SRSA funds this year and are continuing to use SRSA funds through the remainder of this year, we will recommend a portion of that based off board discussions and priorities of ESSER 3 be applied toward board priorities to help the budget next year. I honestly, trying to find not to be rude, I see no advantage to taking the indirect cost and applying it toward attracting and retaining classroom workforce when we can free up general fund money that has great flexibility as we look at fund balance and as we look at the reality that we have 2 open contracts going into mediation in January, and to pre-stage set amounts of money that might be available for outside a contract might not be in the best interests of the contract bargaining process. So I certainly would support what the board votes on. I don't think it gives any more flexibility at all. And I think it detracts from our ability to do joint bargaining in January.
Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to really dial in and because I think I had a similar takeaway, and Member Lessons touched on it, as did staff. These grant funds that we're receiving do have significant restrictions on them, whereas money freed up from administrative costs and using grant funds for that purpose, that freeing up general fund money wouldn't have those restrictions, correct?
Through the president, that is correct.
Okay. So I think that flexibility is important in part because we can use those funds however we want, including supporting staff, which I'm looking forward to doing and having those conversations. And so, yeah, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Comments? Let's go to Member Higgins.
Thank you. And I appreciate the superintendent's comment. I talk about the cliff all the time now, because I know it's coming, and I know that as difficult as that is, it doesn't change us from having to focus on a strategic plan, though, to deal with serious issues here at the school district. And I think that Member Lesson's concern, and I think it's appropriate, is are we directing the resources we need to do in the best way? There's so much out there in the way of funds, and I don't think we're having enough discussions on that strategic plan. And in the absence of that, how that money is being used is leaving us out of the picture. We can't follow that. And we've got to do something about academics. We've got to do something about retention of the teachers we've got right now, because if there's a cliff, when we don't have any teachers, that cliff is going to look like it's small. If we can't attract replacements for people that are leaving the profession right now, and we had 2.5 million people the last 2 months in the country decide they're not going to work anymore. They're giving it up. They're going to walk away from it. They're going to retire early. They're going to do whatever they need to do. And so our workforce is shrinking. It's impacting the municipality. It's impacting ASD. It's impacting the state. It's impacting every employer. I can't go any place without having an application being the first place you see. You don't even see the business's name. It's been taken over by job wanted. We want you. type of information. So we've got a crisis, and having a strategic plan for that. And if this provides additional funds, that's what I think the message is. How can we identify funds that can help address strategic needs right now? And what is the plan to do that? And if this helps provide the plan, and I applaud the effort to try to do that, is say, let's see what money is out there that we can do it with. I know we got a lot of unknowns financially, okay? And I know that a big pot can be spread all over the place, okay? And I think the concern that Member Lessons has, and my concerns as well, is what is the plan within the funds we've got with the highest priorities, so that the board and the administration has a really detailed discussion of that. What can we do for academics? What can we do for teacher retention? How are we going to survive with teacher recruitment? We got problems with food service staffing. We got problems in every area, just like every other employer, in regards to that. So the goal here, and I applaud, because we're discussing it right now, because of the Member Lessons proposal, is that we need to look at every dollar we've got and where they are, and can we use that more effectively to achieve these high priorities. We've got to have what investments can we make today that's going to help this district survive. We're not going to stop a cliff, okay? But we have to teach kids while we're doing it. And we have to make sure that we have the staff to do it, and we have to do things to see that results go up. So we've got to be able to say, let's question every dollar we're spending. Let's question where we're putting it if it doesn't need to be there. And fine, if we don't take this $5 billion out and we leave it there, where does that $5 billion go, and how are we using that in a way that's going to help us achieve the goals that we have got to meet on the school board? I got on the school board with the idea that at the end of my term, we made a difference. If we don't do that, then I have failed. And that's where I'm at right now. I got on it the first time with graduation rates and other things, and right now it's academics and surviving the pandemic. And so I applaud the thing, but I don't think we're getting the response that I need in regards to saying, why is this an advantage? Where will that money go?
You turned yourself off, but we got you. Thank you. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you. And I think I want to share with the board, you're preaching to the choir. I know what's happening in schools. I have a certificate. I place myself in the pool of teachers who sub. I am in buildings every week. I am not blind to it. What we're saying is, you mentioned strategic plan. I'm asking you to spend your money strategically because it will go fast. There has been a ton of asks from the outside. And we're also sharing with you, in 1 month, in 2 weeks, you're going to find out the bigger picture of the pro forma, what it's looking like, what the future looks like. And we have strategic plans. What we presented to you are those things that we know will make a difference right now. The safety issues, the money for retention that we're already using because we have the plan already. That's what we are presenting to you, that these are the things we can act on right away. The other millions of dollars, more than half of these funds, we're presenting to you with your budget to exactly do that, strategically plan as you move forward, because the money can be held or spent until 2024. So what we're trying to do is to engage you in the correct process, I believe, to understand how to utilize this money forward. Attracting and retaining staff absolutely needs to happen. Where does it happen? You have 3 negotiations open. Utilize what you have at the right time strategically is what we're trying to say. Taking money and saying, okay, here is probably not the best way to spend money. You have a strategic plan. You have goals. You have a budget coming up. Use your processes that you already have to come together and move it forward because we all want the same thing. It just needs to be planned, as Mr. Higgins shared. That's what I'm hoping. That is what this was for. To not have it be gone, because it can go. We have literally 6 asks from outside of ASD to spend that ARP money on functions in our community already. Requests. There's lots of eyeballs on it. We will be held accountable. The most way we're going to be held accountable for these funds is what he said again. I've been agreeing with you a lot today, Mr. Higgins.
It's bothering you.
The accountability, no other time in American history has as much cash been pumped into public schools. If we do not have an outcome in student outcomes, you know, putting money into our profession, I don't think federally we will ever have this money again. I have just as much interest to put it and make sure we have the outcomes. And you can't get student outcomes without investing in your teachers. I understand all that. But I think the plan should be comprehensive, but it also should be with a sight on what next year is going to look like in the year after, in the year after. That is why we presented just a small portion, because you will have a long time and lots of meetings to plan that other $60 million, or actually it's more than that. $100 million. That was the reason, just to think about the bigger picture of it is all. Thank you.
Other comments? Member Donnelly?
Thank you, Madam President. I really appreciate this debate. This has been excellent, and I thank the member for bringing this forward. I'm learning throughout this debate. It's great research. In fact, I can't pass the ability to point out the irony that just yesterday in our training session, our Alaska Association of School Boards called this kind of excellent research by a member unauthorized research by a board member. I really think that was really wrong of them, and it really questioned my belief that we should even be a member of that organization anymore. So I really appreciate the debate, and I'm really thinking very hard right now on how to vote. And so thank you, all of you, for your input on this.
Member Higgins.
My only response to that is that they really did a good job of focusing that we are responsible for approving strategic plans. We're responsible for curriculum. We're responsible for so much. And I know it got into a debate about independent research and how they did it and all that because of distraction. And I will agree with you. I didn't like that particular part of the presentation at all. I didn't think it really added value, but I thought it was a good presentation in focusing that the board is responsible for the strategic plan. The board is responsible for approving the curriculum, and we are ultimately responsible, obviously, to the voters for the school, for everything within ASD. And so I like challenging everything. I appreciate that.
Well, and thank you. My recollection is that board members can do research, but is that, you know, it's not about the research. It's just not. But when we are, you know, and we can bring research forward. I don't recall anything yesterday that said board members can't research or were condemned from. It said, and I can see the slide in my head, and I can probably pull it up right here. It said, board members can do research, comma. And I guess the point for me is systemically, I don't know the impact of doing this, taking this action today. I would have preferred a time where we would have had time to discuss it, know about it, discuss it, and talk about it, and understand exactly what the impact of it would be. Making sure, I know we have some things in, because when I talk to teachers, it's not just about the money. The things that matter to teachers is not about giving them a stipend or a bonus. The money is important for their salaries. But there are other things I think we can do as a district. We're not going to buy happiness. What we will invest in is and hopefully find a way to invest in and support and show value more is, how they're feeling doing their job and making sure that they are feeling valued. There is nobody to hire. We either going to grow our own. There is nobody to hire. There's very little to attract. And that's a national trend. So it's not like it was years ago when people were just climbing all over themselves to come to the Anchorage School District. It's not like we could offer, we give you a contract and you have 5 hours to decide to take it or not. And we go to the next person because we had that power that time. That is no longer the case. And so I think when we settle the contract, that is going to give people the value that they need. All three contracts, because there are three. And I think that process, it's a grueling one, but it is a process and it's got to work itself through. So I think the intent of this is great. I think the impact of it, we have to talk about more. Andy, Member Holloman.
I appreciate the intent that Member Wessons has in redirecting this money. But I agree with the points that are raised otherwise, that it creates a logistics issue. This isn't the specific amount of money that we want spent on creating a district that will attract and retain teachers. And the exact price of that is very hard to tell. While a lot of people worry about money disappearing into administrative costs and whatnot, I do understand how this defrays budgeted cost and it frees up money that we have complete freedom to deal with under the boundaries of our budget. So I will be voting against the motion, although I do appreciate the intent behind it. Thank you.
Comment, Member Jacob.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree that this has been a good discussion, and to a certain extent, a miniature finance committee meeting. This might be the best advertisement ever for folks to tune in. If you like this, there's more. With that said, I wonder if there's even wisdom in voting on this, knowing some of the logistical and just uncertainties regarding just the language. And so I guess I'm curious, a check into the maker, if we still see voting on this appropriate.
Member Lessons. Oh, you're there.
I'm considering.
Member Higgins.
I think
we'll come back.
I think what we're going to see here is that we know we got this money going into the general fund, replacing the general fund. That gives it more flexibility. And our challenge during the budget process is where's the money going in everywhere in the budget. So we know that we have additional money replacing this in the general fund. We're giving us more flexibility there. And now that we're aware of that, as you pointed out, it's very good that we have to look at the impact of all of this money on the general fund. We can look and question and say, okay, how much is the general fund is impacted by this, and where is that money going? So I think this debate will come up now doing the budget process at a higher level because you've raised it as a solid issue. So whether the money's here or whether the money's extra in the general fund, whichever way it is, it still exists, and it still gives us the chance to be able to focus and question how that money's being spent.
Thank you. Member Wilson.
I appreciate the research that you've done, Member Lessons. I truly do. I would, as President Bellamy stated, I would have appreciated some more time to review that, rather than having a lot less time to review your research and your thought, listen to your thought process, and have the input from the administration. So I would ask that in the future, when you have this wonderful research, you offer it with some more advanced notice to give us, well, at least me, the opportunity to review it and ask some questions myself as well.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Madam President, I guess I'm looking for clarity. Are we proceeding to a vote?
The maker has not rescinded her vote.
Okay. So
I mean, her motion, sorry.
My microphone's
It's
still
on.
on. I appreciate the thoughtful responses from everybody here. I appreciate hearing that we'll be receiving the pro forma shortly. And I look forward to engaging in that process. I had a conversation with the principal a week or two ago, Monday last week. She said that she had interviews. She'd interviewed 100 people for roles in her school for this year. She's still relying on long-term substitutes. I had another conversation with another principal 3-4 weeks ago. No applicants for 3 weeks prior. I'm really concerned about retaining the employees that we have. And I'll rescind this motion, but I intend to continue to focus on retaining the people that we have because, as you said, President Bellamy, there's nobody coming. It's not the appropriate phrase, but the cavalry is not coming to rescue us is coming to my mind. In order to have effective classrooms, we need to have an adequate number of teachers who want to be there. So I will rescind that motion and I will look forward to the process of engaging strategically and nimbly with everybody in the room.
Okay. The maker of the motion rescinds her motion at this time. And I absolutely agree with the intent of this. I personally think it's going to take more than 5.3 million, but I don't have enough information to know. I want to settle these 3 contracts. I want to settle the contracts. And if we can get that done as quickly as procedurally possible, because it's not just a human thing now, it's a process. Because I think that alone will add value to the workforce. Because what I hear is it's not just the money, but yes, the money is important. And it is not having subs. It's having people in this building who can't do their job because they are out subbing in schools. I mean, it's about things that are exasperated. We've always had shortage of subs some days, but not like this. And we've always had a pipeline of talent, not like this. We don't have a pipeline. And so how do we do that? And you know, I think there's some things in the works at the state level, at the national level. And I think there are things that we can do much better than we're doing now. But it's that how are we going to be strategically minded to make sure that we use this money? I mean, it's unfathomable to me, $112 million. Some districts get 3 times that because they have that much money. I mean, that many kids. I cannot imagine. Atlanta, they probably got 10 times that. I don't know what that would be. but they would have more resources. They would have more of a labor market. They would have surrounding neighborhoods where people can drive and commute to work. We don't have that. We have what we have. And yes, I want to retain them. And yes, I want them to feel valued. I want all of that. I want to settle those 3 contracts. And that will be the part of the start for me. And if we can do a good job with that, people will want to stay. And if we can provide relief with subs, I don't know where to get them, but if we can provide sub release let people get back in this building, I don't know, on any given day, I'll bet you a third of the people, if not more, are out in schools. We got a superintendent that covers classes. That's great because she loves doing it. But what about the other work? What about the other stuff we want her to do? What about the other stuff we need the staff to do? And teachers, maybe we can let teachers go when the day ends for kids and everybody's gone. Maybe we say, okay, you don't have to stay that extra 15 minutes, that extra 20 minutes. So there's some things I think we can do that might not cost a bunch of money, but would add some stress release, some immediate release. And some of our principals are doing some amazing things. I think, in fact, you covered a winter wellness day at Willowa. That was amazing. Clark had a paint day for their teachers. That was amazing. Now, those things don't last. And don't get me wrong, they don't replace, they're not the things that do everything, all right, meet everybody's needs. But we know that it's stressful and we know that we want them to stay. So we've just got to strategically move through and figure it out and look at not just our intents, but also the impact of what it is we're going to do and how it's going to dwindle down, get that back down to our kids and our families. So with that,
Madam President, I just wanted to confirm that the second agrees with the motion withdrawal.
Okay, thank you. So the maker has already. Okay.
Yeah, it's typical
okay.
that
Procedurally.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so where are we, Katie? I got carried away.
Yeah. We're on the main
motion. So we
motion.
are back at the main motion to approve and authorize the superintendent to accept an American Rescue Plan Act grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development in the amount of $112.5 million or $4 million and some change. No more discussion. Let's vote.
Member Donnelly,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
Member Higgins, Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that passes unanimously. We are now at item H.
Yes, Madam President, I move ASD Memorandum number 055, acceptance of the 2022 Anchorage School District Legislative. I'm sorry, I'm off.
No, we're good. Those are non-action. Did you want to pull
That's
any?
right. No, I'm sorry, I misread on the agenda. I don't
That's
need to
okay.
introduce that. So yes, it's non-action and I spoke out of turn. Sorry.
And they will come back at our next meeting. And there is no additional public testimony. Nobody's in the room to testify. Superintendent, do you have an update?
Yes, thank you. The update I was going to share the other night, just yesterday, was a really great general leadership that we had the other day. And if you're out and about, you can see how it landed on our principals. This month, we really wanted to talk about how what we do in schools lands on our families and our kids. And we had a few guest speakers, Teresa Lyons from the YWCA. We had from Alaska Public Radio, Stephanie McFadden, and from First Alaskans, IU K. She has a long last name. It's hard. It's pronounced Quilituck. Sounds like a K, but it's spelled with a Q. And they really told their stories about education in Anchorage and their experiences with Anchorage. Two of them actually were our graduates, and just shared some insights into schools and their experiences and what they could do as partners in the community with ASD. And so that was a highlight. Additionally, we had some other trainings this week that people could attend or not, but the two, in talking about investing in people, we had called Coaching Greatness. Someone come up, and our coaches, whether they worked for us or not, or some were our PE teachers, provided, and it really engaged in staff development on a 360 basis, learning about themselves and their strengths and building capacity. And I will share some of those comments with the board about feeling, actually to your point, feeling valued. That the first PE teacher from one of our high schools said, I've been working for 15 years, and this is the first time that I've really sat and thought about what I do and how I can get better in my craft with my peers. And so we had about 50 on one day. And then we also did what's called Leadership Blueprint, which are teacher leaders, coordinators, assistant principals, directors, supervisors that got together that also invested in 360 to really learn and work with a peer and a team. So 3 of those professional developments happened all last week. Actually all last week, Wednesday, Monday, and Friday. And wanted to share that because they were well received, even in a time that is ultra stressed. The idea that we're doing fine and things are normal, that those words can't be used. We are doing the best because we care about kids every day, and work hard every day because we care about kids, and people are going to buildings, and we're just holding each other up and doing our best. And part of really calling a snow day last Thursday was part of that. I mean, I relished in the ability to be able to say, everybody go home at 11. And because that doesn't affect students and their learning, and didn't have to make up another day, didn't have to ask our hourly employees to use their leave so they can work longer in the summer. There's lots of impacts when we change things around. So just really we're looking forward to having a couple of breaks at school, well deserved and well needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that brings us, yes, Member Donnelly.
Thank you. I have some questions for the superintendent. Madam Superintendent, Education Week is reporting that schools can now use COVID relief funds for school transportation expenses. I think it's kind of a new development. But I've just read that this week. And I know we had some bus routes that we were unable to fulfill earlier in the year. And I think the district did some help to parents there in that circumstance, but now that it's specifically authorized that we could use COVID funds for that, if we have any future bus discontinuations, do you have any plans for the district to be able to use those funds to compensate parents?
That's a great question. We don't have any plans because we have, utilize some of our ESSER money to be able to do that. And when we, offered it, believe it or not, because it's, a lot of our parents didn't take it because they said they didn't need it. When we planned that much in advance, we offered it, some took it, some didn't, but we have plenty of gas cards. If needed, we could. We're working through those things and getting folks hired. We don't have all of our bus routes yet, but did feel along those same lines that, we received money for the children. Let's give the money back to the cost of that. And but to our surprise, a lot of our parents just are turning it down and saying, you know what, we've got this, don't worry. So, but we can, but we haven't needed to.
let's see, any other questions? Member Jacobs, and then we'll come back, Member Downey.
Yeah, so I had a question on the, there was a library book that we've gotten emails about. It's circulated through various news sites. And like I said, a question about that. It hits close to home a bit, as Alicia and I have fostered youth from the LGBTQ plus community. And we didn't intend going in to serve that population. We certainly weren't the most well equipped, but we found out early on that actually those youth are extremely hard to place in foster homes in Alaska specifically, which was interesting. And so when I received the email and the subsequent notices about the book being inappropriate, I'm concerned about removing books from schools. With that said, I understand that there are legitimate library science related reasons why certain books shouldn't be in a library, in this case, a high school library. I'm more curious if you could expand on what level of parent involvement, and this is a bit of an education question for me too, what level of parent involvement is the district looking at in the conversations as to whether or not a book is appropriate for a school library? And then two, if we decide that a book isn't appropriate for an ASD library, I'm thinking that there might not be many occurrences, but as a matter of practice, have we thought about replacing it with a book that's considered to be age and developmentally appropriate, so that there's sufficient literature for students to access information that they might be seeking? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the president to Member Jacobs, I can put our review process and who's on the teams that review. It does start at a school level and usually is handled right at the school level and doesn't come to this level unless needed. The content of the book was an adult novel. And then when we did the review process, I just made the call because just so you know, if we were to use our library share system for the Muni library, it would be blocked as an adult novel, but yet it was in ours. So we saw it as an adult novel and removed it. If you were to Google LBGQ T plus, you could right now in our libraries find other literature. So it isn't that we don't have that or that we're doing a book for a book. We support our students and their interests. And, but this particular book, it was not about the, lifestyle. The lifestyle. It simply was about the sexual content. So so I don't know if that answers your question.
Can I follow up, Madam President?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so no, and I appreciate the explanation. I actually went after the article and the emails we received. I went over the weekend. I went and perused through a copy. I didn't read it cover to cover, but I would say it was a little bit more the content of the book. I don't know if it was fair to say that it boiled down to just that, but I'm also not disagreeing that there were. It's definitely questionable whether or not it was age and developmentally appropriate, and so I'm all for a process that decides that I don't think that every instance should rise to the board level. And we're already getting emails about other books, and so I guess I'm curious that the question boils down to what level of parent involvement there is, and if there's ways for parents to get involved, because I think that's a valid voice in the conversation. And then two, in lieu of taking resources and books away, I do like the idea of replacing it with something if we feel that something isn't age and developmentally appropriate. Instead of just losing that resource, replacing it with a different book, to me seems valuable and sends a message which I think has been sent to the LGBTQ plus community. This was one book, as I understand it, in one school with extremely limited circulation. I don't think this issue, the message that was sent by its removal far outweighed any benefit that the one book might have had. And so I think it's more about messaging. And so that's what I'm interested in.
Sure, and I think those questions can be answered in the Board Connect. I'll send information about how the process works in selecting books. I think that was the thing, as well as removing a book from circulation. But these processes are longstanding. And just so you know, a child can come into a library and say, "Hey, do you have this library book?" And a library could say, "Librarian, no, I don't. Let me look at it and we can get it in here." So even kids can request books at libraries, but we'll get that information. And there was no intent to, I know the words ban, this and that. It's just a call that we make. And in the past, during my tenure, we have removed other books. We've had, ones from our middle school reading series, different things like that. But certainly I felt as though there were other books that replaced that, but I think you are sharing, that was my point, that actually they're in the library, but kind of like a trade-off is what you're talking about. Okay.
Thank you.
Well taken.
And I think along that line, I looked briefly at our policies because we have a controversial issues policy. So we might need to look at that and see if there's anything we can do to make it, because I'm not sure what the process is. And so if a parent has a concern, ideally what happened now when I was a librarian, that's been like eons ago, they would talk to the principal or come directly to the librarian. We would have a conversation, and the parent may not want that book for their child, but and that put more onus on the employees to like, okay, your mom said you cannot check that book out, but it's an appropriate book, but the parent chose not to have their child read it. We try to do things like that. I think in the past we have, but usually parents talk to principals, principals talk to librarians, librarians and principals talk to parents, and they decide, how they're going to handle it. So whatever the process is, and I think that there's a form, or there used to be a form that people could fill out when they had we have a form that parents, any citizen can fill out if they have a questionable book, but it's not at the board level. And people are offended when I say the board is not selecting books. Neither are we, but when we know of an issue, we do send it to the superintendent. And, but then even that, because I don't know how we would know every book that's on the shelf in every school's library. I don't know how we would do that. But I do support parents' rights to question and ask for a review. So I would like to look at our policies again and make sure that they are doing what we think they're doing. Other comments? Member Higgins, did I see you? No, you did? Okay. Mr. Holloman, question?
None today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll back to Kelly. You good? Okay. And then we'll go back to you, Mr. Donnelly.
So this may be echoing or maybe building on President Bellamy's request for information from the start of this meeting. Seems like a long time ago. And that is that I am really interested in understanding the plausibility of adjustments to the calendar for the second semester of this current school year that would support student outcomes by potentially creating additional staff time for mental health and wellness, as well as protected time for site-based planning and professional development. And I say that again, coming out of a conversation with the principal, and that principal said, we need a day a month. Maybe we can develop like a SWAT team of people to come. Maybe it wouldn't interrupt students at all, right? If a SWAT team of relief substitutes could come in and allow that school to have professional development, maybe that's a creative solution for allowing staff to have that time without disrupting students. So I would be keenly interested in building on President Bellamy's RFI. What creative problem solving can we do to give our staff the time and space where they can do their best?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to underscore that.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to Member Dolly.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to follow up on the pornographic book, I think it clearly was pornographic, and I support your decision in taking it out. It should have never been in the school in the first place. I've received a lot of questions from parents regarding the exposure that took place, like how many students checked it out. Does ASD have a policy of contacting parents of students who checked out the book? Is there going to be any affirmative offer of counseling for those children that were exposed to the pornography? And what is our policy to try to prevent this from happening again?
We can have some answers to that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not prepared to answer that right now. Would you like to, can I have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I have the same email. I mean, a question, similar questions, so I can, yeah. And I think, as we know, it was one copy in one high school library. This year, one student checked it out. That was in information that we have already.
Yeah, I think it'd be also important to know whether other schools ordered that same batch of books and then it was actually identified as inappropriate and pulled out. I mean, I think that would be important information to the public also.
Okay. And Madam President, some of the information we can get, and then some, even in looking into this, staff had retired. We didn't have, we had to, forensically look ourselves. So 2018 is the year that, 18-19 that it was. And so staff that ordered it don't even work for us anymore. So just wanted to share that. But.
Okay, so we're moving on the agenda.
Madam President, if nobody else had another question, I've got another question.
Okay, Mr. Dunley.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent, major school districts around the country who had mandatory masking are now discontinuing it. A particular example is one Florida major district that actually fought with the governor to get the right to do masking, and now they're discontinuing masking. Matsu never had it. Kenai does currently. I just called down there. They're not requiring masking for their children there either. When will ASD have a written plan for discontinuing mandatory masking for our students? When will we have a plan in place for when that's going to occur?
Sure. Just my latest update shared that as we move forward with time and our cases are going down in our city, it was in the last paragraph. I said that we will be adjusting our mitigation more soon. We are working through that now with our health services to be able to present that back. But I look forward to announcing next month when that will happen.
Thank you. And I am going to move us on to, we're kind of there, board and administrative comments. So we will let's start with you tonight, Member Jacobs. Do you have any comments? Closing comments.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't think I think I'm mostly okay today. Upcoming meetings, I've said a lot. This has been a 2-day meeting. Mm-hmm. I know that we have our joint meeting with the Assembly here on Friday. Normally I have more time, or I make more time to pull up our committee meetings. I think governance has already met this month, and so our next governance meeting is in December. And so that's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, Member Dunley?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I had 2 subjects I wanted to mention. I did some more research into our ability to get us back onto Channel 9, our board meetings. And as you know, we had some discussion of that at the last meeting, and there was raised that GCI, who hosts Channel 9, was moving to something they're calling Yukon Streaming. And somehow that was suggested that it was not going to be available to the general public as much, but I've since identified that they're going to move everything to Yukon Streaming. So everybody that has GCI is going to be able to get Channel 9. So I think it's still very appropriate that we can consider and get back on Channel 9. And I did talk to the folks that coordinated. They said they'd be happy to have the school board back on there. All the technical equipment and resources exist to get us back on there. It's not a question of any of that. And the Assembly is maintaining their presence on Channel 9, even though they're also doing some streaming options such as us. So I don't want to see this issue died. I think getting more access to the public is really important. And not everybody has a computer or streaming to be able to access our current system. And a lot of those people that don't are going to have this service through GCI because it's the most common provider in Anchorage right now. So I don't think we should consider that a settled issue yet. I think we should be still considering getting back on Channel 9. I was very concerned that at the meeting last night, we heard some testimony that opposing critical race theory was and somehow linked to opposing teaching minority history. That's just false. My opposition to critical race theory being on the ASD website or being used to develop policy has nothing whatsoever with the honest teaching of American history, and the history of minorities has a valid and needed place in our schools. I was just really discouraged to hear that. Representation, I think we're all equal under the United States Constitution. More importantly, I think we're all equal under God. Critical race theory, in my opinion, and many, many others, is simply a very Marxist, anti-God, anti-traditional family, anti-Western civilization, and frankly, unconstitutional racist concept. It's radically anti-merit, which is something the school district supports.
Anti-what? I'm sorry.
Merit. Merit. And it's anti-equality. It's anti-capitalism. It teaches hating American culture. And I think it is sneaking its way into public schools nationally. And any use or its presence in our district, I also believe is a direct violation of our new anti-racism policy, which, as you well know, Madam President, rightfully states that, and this is a quote, our board rejects all forms of racism. And the very critical race theory books that were on the ASD website advocated overt and illegal racism. Just quote from How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi, the author that our director of Office of Equity and Compliance said she was hoping to use as a guide for developing policy. A quote from page 19 of that book: the only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. That's pure, overt, unconstitutional racism being proposed, and I oppose its use in this school district. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two sort of parting thoughts. The one is maybe a follow-up from our finance committee and sort of a follow-up from this discussion a little bit ago. I remain interested in understanding the extent to which we might compensate staff who have been doing the heavy lifting this fall as a result of unfilled vacancies. And so I feel like that's a conversation that I would like to continue to pursue in the finance committee and through the budget planning process. And the second is a total change. And we had a lot, West High School came up on the news this week, but on Sunday, I was able to go to West High School with my family. We watched a wonderful afternoon matinee from their theater students. They had us laughing. They were charming. They were effervescent. And it was a total joy to just be there and appreciate their gifts. And it was also really cool to see riflery competition happening in the adjacent gymnasium. So I'm bringing together students from across the district. That was just an added bonus. So I was appreciative of the good work that our students are doing.
Great, thank you. Closing comments, Member Holloman.
I don't really have any.
Okay.
I'm ready to close. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Come on, Member Higgins. Comments?
I think by my calculations, I have 4 hours and 10 minutes left.
No, you have like
So-
2 seconds. Start the timer, Katie.
I'm just trying to figure out the math here real quick. I didn't want anybody else to just run away. Just a few comments real quick. First of all, on the part of the banning of the book, I had a chance to look at the book. I had a chance to see some of it. I understand the decision. I think it's not an attempt to move the subject out of the school. I appreciate Member Jacobs' proposal that we replace that book with something comparable, because we're not sending a message that we're not interested in the diversity of books for kids to be able to get, and acceptance of that. That was a discussion at the Alaska School Board Association as well, and I appreciate that. So, especially since in the 90s, I purchased my wife the American Heritage Dictionary after it was banned by the Anchorage School District because it gave meaning to certain 4-letter words. They didn't want the kids to actually know what the words meant. So it was kind of interesting when she got on school board. I got her an American Heritage Dictionary to send a message. So I appreciate that. Just a few comments. We weren't here to be able to thank the people that spoke last time, but there were a lot of heartfelt, supporters with the charter school, with the contract issues that are out there. There's a lot of people coming forward, spending the time, staying here in the meeting so that we can listen to them. I want to tell them that was meaningful to me. I appreciate it. It was something that it's good to see that type of support with any of our schools and with the issues that are there. And with that, I'll yield the 4 hours and 8 minutes left.
Thank you. Member Wilson.
So there's a lot of agreeing with Pat tonight, because I agree with what you say in regards to the staff from the schools coming in to advocate for their students and their communities, as well as the families. So I thank them as well. I don't know about all this agreeing with Pat in one meeting, but just joking. I also had the pleasure of attending Willowall for their Wellness Day, and I left smelling of popcorn and hot chocolate, and so I called that my new perfume for the day. But they did a wonderful job. I appreciate the district staff that came to help with their school as well. They had some folks out, and so as you mentioned earlier, there's district administrative staff that are helping to fill in the schools as well. Spent my morning at Whaley this morning, and that was great too. I really enjoyed getting to know the staff there and seeing what they are doing with the students. That's a school with high behavioral needs, and I know they work really hard. They were short-staffed, and it running a little crazy this morning, but all had positive attitudes. They all talked about how they make sure that they just get the job done for the students. They fill in, they help out, they do what they need to do to make sure, even if there's some staff out for whatever reason, they support their staff if they need to be out for, if they're ill or for family reasons, whatever it is. So that's their way of supporting each other. So I think that's what I've heard from many of the schools that I have had the opportunity to go visit. So again, thank you to the staff for supporting each other and supporting our students and families.
Okay, thank you. I'm so tired, I don't even know if I can speak, but I would like to just offer my own understanding around this critical race theory conversation. I respect Member Dunley's right to bring it up, but in my opinion, it is totally misrepresented. There is no such thing as a K-12 critical race theory curriculum. As a lawyer, Member Donnelly may have had the opportunity to study critical race theory as part of a legal class or a college class. Our kids are fabulous, but they're not there yet. When I use CRT, it's culturally responsive teaching, which we have required our teachers to do for years. It's not new. What's new is a misinformation and misapplication of a term to public education. And I get it. People have a right to think and feel however they like. And they get to say whatever they like because we all have the freedom of speech. But when that speech is toxic, I believe that we have a right or an obligation to speak up. There is no critical race theory K-12 curriculum. The Anchorage School District is not teaching critical race theory. And as long as there is the books that were on this website, we have addressed over and over and over and over. We will never be able to convince individuals, and they have a right to believe what they believe. I respect that. We have addressed that. But it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up, and I will keep responding the way that I do. The Anchorage School District is not teaching critical race theory. Adults who have access to materials and wish to engage and inform their knowledge, they are perfectly welcome to do so. We've explained the intent of the books on the website. They were on the website. We got a legal opinion on the website, yet it keeps coming up. And that's why we live in, we're blessed to live in America because we get to say what we need to say over and over again. And with that, that ends our public comments for tonight. And I thank everybody for coming. Thank you.